Weirding Way Media.
Night, Mr. Walters.
You see that guy over there? Now, he's an actor. The guy on the phone, he's a prize fighter. Me, I'm a cab driver. I'm the only cab driver in this place.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Night, Mr. Walters, a taxi podcast. I'm HP, your co-host, and with me, as he is every week, is my other co-host, Father Malone. Father Malone, how are you this evening?
Oh man, I'm so looking forward to talking about Harold and Maude 2, Taxi Edition.
Yes, indeed. Let's get into this. The episode that Father Malone is not so obliquely referencing is Taxi Episode 14, Sugar Mama. It's written by the pride of Henderson, Nevada, Glenn Charles and Les Charles.
The Charles Boys. I love the Charles Boys. I get so excited every time I see their name. And this script is no slouch.
It's a very special episode of Taxi, and we'll talk about all the reasons why. I should mention, as if it needs mentioning, that it's directed by, of course, James Burrows. Reminder, we're doing these shows in broadcast order and not in order of filming.
Also a reminder, James Burrows directed all of them. If we forget to say his name, you'll forgive us, okay?
So we start off this episode. Alex is driving his cab at night, and he's reporting back into Louis on the little radio. And Louis gives Alex a warning that it's a full moon, and every creep is going to be out tonight. Alex then tells Louis to make sure he wears a jacket because it's cold tonight.
I like that exchange between them. I like the banter between them. And it's nice because in any other sort of lesser sitcom, their relationship would be the glowering boss who we hear from and he's gruff and that's it. But this is a true working relationship that they can blow off steam and joke with each other.
Alex is probably the one who's least antagonized by Louis. I think we can agree on that.
Oh, that's true. He always seems to be bemused by Louis. Like he doesn't let anything Louis is doing affect him personally.
Yeah, and Alex is the one that Louis is the most likely to, as we saw in the previous episode, Full House for Christmas. Alex is the one that Louis will often go to with his problems because it's apparent that Louis doesn't view Alex as a simple underling. There's a respect there. So to your point, I think they play off of that relationship really well. Alex in his cab is hailed by an old woman who wants Alex to take her to Shea Stadium. And he says, well, there's no game tonight. And she gives him a tart response that she didn't ask for the schedule. And who is this woman, you ask? Father Malone, who is this mystery passenger?
The always phenomenal, supernaturally talented, always watchable Ruth Gordon. Most would know her from her turn in Rosemary's Baby. She's one of the Coven. I think everyone else and everyone should. And if you haven't seen the movie, you should be ashamed of yourself. That movie is Harold and Maude. She's Maude in that film. It is one of my absolute favorite films. It's in my top 3. The success of that movie is not 100% on her. It's 50-50 with her and Bud Cort, but she is an absolute marvel to watch. And what a treat that she shows up here.
In a career that spanned 70 years, that's 70 years, she was nominated for 5 Academy Awards. She won 1 in 1969 for Rosemary's Baby, which you mentioned. She was also nominated for 4 Primetime Emmys, winning 1 in 1979 for this particular episode.
Well deserved. You know me, HP. I'm not the biggest fan of the awards. Sometimes they do not reflect the quality of a show. Not this show, obviously. But yeah, Ruth Gordon deserves all the awards anytime she shows up anywhere.
As you said, Father Malone, she's eminently watchable. She's always got this glint in her eye. She makes it seem effortless.
Do you know her first credited role was in 1940 as Mary Todd Lincoln in Abe Lincoln in Illinois? 40 years later, here she is on Taxi, just slaying.
That cliche of wine getting better with age, I think that holds true for Ruth Gordon. She was a treasure, a true acting treasure.
Now, I brought up that she started in 1944 as if that was an incredible span of time. She actually made her debut on stage in 1915 in a production of Peter Pan. She was one of the Lost Boys. 1915. There was no air conditioning when Ruth Gordon began her career in acting. And by the time she finished, we had walked on the moon.
We cut back. Now we see Alex and this old woman. We now know her name is Dee. They're sitting outside Shea Stadium. And after some banter back and forth between herself and Alex, she asks Alex to take her to LaGuardia Airport. She wants them to park at the end of a runway so they can see the planes coming in for a landing right at them. And she describes what it's like when the airplane comes in and you can hear the landing gear come down. Again, we just talked about, this is a woman who's in her 80s at this point. She talks with such glee and such excitement. She wins over Alex. She wins over the audience, for that matter. She's like the grandmother that we all wish we had, the eccentric, crazy grandmother with the glint in her eye. She's so warm and funny.
Yeah, she's got exuberance. Ruth Gordon just exudes a genuine lust for life, as cliche as that phrase might sound. It fairly sparkles off of her. I do have a quick question, which is her first exchange with Rieger is I didn't ask for the schedule, Sonny, just take me to the ballpark. In order to deliver that line, she slides the plexiglass divider to the side and leans in and says it. And I wondered, what is the goddamn purpose of the plexiglass divider if your potential perpetrator can just slide it open and stick a gun in your face?
That did seem rather concerning because she's over 80 years old at this point, and she just swipes the thing across like it's nothing.
When Burns was in the backseat, it fell on Alex. Maybe Burns has been loosening up the screws on all of the plexiglass dividers while no one is looking. Part of his master plan.
Who knows? But that did seem odd that she just rolls it aside like nothing.
And while they're at Shea Stadium, did you notice this? This felt odd to me. The shot of Shea Stadium looked a lot to me like they took a photograph of Shea Stadium during the day and then painted it into nighttime. Did you get that feeling?
I didn't. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch it. Do you think it was like a matte painting?
I'm not saying that they brought in, Douglas Slocombe to paint on glass for this one quick shot of Shea Stadium in this episode of Taxi, but I'm saying it felt like a little unusual.
When she asks Alex to drive her to the airport, he starts to think that maybe this full moon business is true. But they go to the runway anyway. And here's another special shout out. It's the process shot of them inside the cab, because now out the back window of the cab, you can see the landing lights as if they're on the runway at LaGuardia, which I thought was beautiful.
The poor man's process is on point in this episode. It's out of hand, out of control, and super fantastic. We'll get back to it because it's going to come up again later. But HB, have you ever done this?
Oh, gone to an airport?
Yeah, parked your car at the edge of a runway to watch planes either take off over you or land near you.
I've never done it. I remember in college, they did something similar in the movie Wayne's World. And there was some discussion about us all piling into a car and trying it, but we never did it. Have you tried it?
Oh, of course, yes. In several airports.
Was it every bit the thrilling experience that Dee thinks it is?
Nah, I could take it or leave it.
You probably couldn't do that these days, post 9/11, have a car out on the runway like that.
Well, I will say that here in Las Vegas, there is a car port, like park, where you can sort of pull over and not have planes land and take off over you, but you can watch them take off and land. Kind of nice, actually.
Be kind of cool. No, it makes me wish I did try that when I was younger. Dee is shouting with absolute glee at the plane that just flew overhead. Alex, I think, is starting to warm up to Dee and her zest for life. And to your point, Father Malone, it's hard in the midst of all of this. This isn't a knock against Ruth Gordon or anything, but it's hard not to see this a little bit as Harold and Maude Part 2, as you alluded in earlier in this program. This character is very close to the character she played in that movie.
Well, I mean, yes, in that it's Ruth Gordon, and she's an older woman teaching a younger man how to live better, but they're not in any way the same, really, as far as background and point of view. But here's the thing, like, I don't know that I would be making a Harold and Maude comparison if it hadn't been Ruth Gordon. And I do like this script. I don't think the script resembles Harold and Maude in any way other than Ruth Gordon brings that to it.
She then starts to tell Alex a little bit about her background. She was the clerk at the candy counter at Woolworth's for over 35 years. At that point, Dee says, hey, they should drive past her old store. Alex asks, was it on the way? And she says, well, everything's on the way. This is just like a flight of fancy for her. She's just stream of consciousness deciding, I want to go here, I want to go there. And she's taking Alex on this kind of adventure.
She's hired a cab driver as a limousine driver for the evening effect.
Yeah, exactly. Alex eventually has to drive her home. It's late. And she says she had a very nice time. And Alex agrees that he did too, despite kind of the craziness of it all. He had a really nice time. Dee asks Alex to come pick her up around 6 p.m. the following night, but he has to explain to her that he gets in around 5:30 and never knows really how long he'll have to wait for the day drivers to roll in. Let's remember that he is a night shift cabbie. I think, as you pointed out, the very first episode of Night Mr. Walters, the day shift ends around 5:30, right? Or that's when the night shift begins.
No, night shift begins at 3 p.m.
3 p.m.? Then why does he say 5:30?
I have no idea, but the sign on the wall says 3.
Oh, okay. My mistake.
Maybe that's just maybe poor set decoration or something, but that's what I've based their thing on what they told me.
So then she asks how much she owes, and he reluctantly says, because the meter's been running, he's feel like he's been dreading this part. He says, well, I told you it was going to be high. It's $74.25. And she says, don't worry, I'm comfortable. In fact, she says, quote unquote, she is filthy comfortable, which is a nice way of saying she's rich. Alex questions how could she be rich on a Woolworth's pension? And she laughs and says that she never got married and she decided to focus on work. A few months before retiring, she met a wealthy man who asked her to marry him. She accepted. 4 months later, he died. And she says, there's a moral in there somewhere. She wants to give Alex a nice tip, and she asks what the best tip he ever got was. And he says, well, a guy gave me $25 once. Dee enthusiastically gives him exactly $26 and congratulates him on a new record. It's funny because I think we all figured she would give him like, here's $200 or some ridiculously large tip. But she only goes $1 up just so he can have the record and yet still not have to give him too much money.
Kind of chintzy. I would have given him $100. Big tipper, though. I don't know.
$25.78 is nothing to sneeze at. Nothing to sneeze at now either. Would you turn down $26? I would.
I'd say thank you very much. Listen, I used to drive. We've never really talked about this HB, but I spent some time in a parallel cabbie lifestyle driving for rideshare. Sometimes I would have people who were dripping with wealth and would be proclaiming how wealthy they were and would tip not at all while telling me they would. So, God damn it, she should have given him $100 easily. I mean, she eventually does, obviously, in the episode, but still. I mean, I get what you're saying, that she's feeling him out. Nevertheless, come on, lady. He drove you everywhere.
She's made it clear that she's got a ton of money. I mean, it's nothing to her. Alex offers to help her out of the cab. And this is one of the many things I really love, the line readings. She brusquely replies, forget it. Like, you know, she's so feisty. It's fantastic. Alex kind of smiles to himself and he drives off. So now we're back at the garage and the cabbies are all complaining about the crazies that the full moon brings out. Alex returns and Bobby asks if he picked up any crazies tonight. And Alex says, no, he picked up a nice old lady who just wanted to drive around and talk. And meanwhile, Dopey Burns lumbers over. He's eating cookies.
Oh, my God.
In an episode filled with bright moments, this is the darkest. He's eating cookies and exclaiming to himself, I'm eating. Apparently, he picked up 2 quote-unquote rock musicians and claims that he's still on his contact high.
Oh, my God. He's on a contact high. Get out of here, you dummy.
Check me on this, Father Malone. I feel like they did a similar bit with Woody on Cheers. Do you remember anything about that?
It sounds familiar, and I can't remember it specifically.
Nevertheless, it doesn't work here in Taxi. It's just another example of Burns not really fitting into the whole episode or the ensemble. Hey, who comes over to the garage? Dee shows up at the garage. She proceeds to charm all of the cabbies because they make it clear that in their conversation the previous night, her and Alex, that he's talked all about all the people at Sunshine Cab. She knows without anyone saying a word who Louis is, who Elaine is, and so on and so forth. Even Louis, who gives her some lip, you can tell that he is a little bit charmed by Dee as well. And or maybe it could be that it's Danny DeVito kind of betraying the fact that he's really enjoying his time acting alongside Ruth Gordon. Did you notice he had kind of a smile?
Of course, how could you not? Like, what could be better for an actor than doing a scene against her, particularly if it's an antagonistic scene? Also, how stoked was Ruth Gordon to be opposite a leading man type and tower over him? That's got to be rare. Also, what a missed opportunity that we didn't get a buddy film starring Danny DeVito and Ruth Gordon. It could have been spectacular.
It could have been. He had to settle for Anne Ramsey and throw Mama from the train, but I think she was a bit taller than Ruth Gordon, right?
Yeah. Was Ruth Gordon dead by then? Must have been.
Must have been.
Yeah.
She says to Alex that she has the perfect solution to this logistical problem of him getting a cab. And what she does is essentially bribe Louis $5. And Louis immediately kicks Banta out of the cab that he just gave Banta moments earlier and installs Alex and his fair Dee in this cab. So it works. And they're off. They're on another joyride for the evening. She's riding in the front seat of the cab with Alex, which, as we know, that's a sign of comfort and ease with the cabbies when they allow somebody to ride up front with them as opposed to the back, right?
A sign of a guest star in an episode. Your Tom Selleck's, your Ruth Gordon's. Yes, they get to ride in the front seat along with the leads from Taxi.
True, unless you're a Scoey Mitchell, a mugger in the episode that he was in, 804, in which case being in the front seat is no good.
Although maybe no good for Wheeler, but good for the audience.
Yeah, no, hey, that was the best part of that. We agreed that was the best part of that two-parter. She's charming Alex with the story of how she met her late husband. Dee wistfully looks away and says, yeah, I miss George's crapola. I don't know, something about the way she said it. I thought it was hilarious.
Well, she's no nonsense, matter of fact, and that's the thing. Like, people like this kind of a character because they tell it like it is, but people take the wrong lesson from a character like that. They think that's a license to just be an asshole. This character is not being an asshole. She's saying things sincerely. So yes, she's talking about him and his bullshit, but she misses him and his bullshit. It was part of him. There's a genuine infection there for it.
So they continue to have this deep conversation, and they were talking about her adjustment to suddenly becoming rich, because remember, she was just living on a Woolworth's salary for decades, and all of a sudden she's very comfortable. She said she's filthy comfortable. She says, that's the day when I realized that being poor is best left to people with no money. Again, you can't lose with Ruth Gordon.
No, you can't. But I got to say, when she says that, Rieger's reaction is my reaction. He facially conveyed what I was thinking. Just fuck you, old woman. What kind of bullshit is that? Like, you were one of us. Don't be that person. Like, we're going to let you slide because you're Ruth Gordon, but fuck you.
The writing is fantastic in this episode. I mean, she's delivering it, but the writing itself is really solid. They're giving her a lot to work with. And it's a credit to the Charleses that this is a really solidly written episode, right?
Yeah, because, hey, in the previous episode, there was no B plot. And we saw that as a sign of weakness in that script. Is there a B plot here? No. And yet it's more focused, it's more funny, it's more character driven, and it's more nuanced. Way to go, Charles brothers. Charles plus Charles equals fantastic.
I often knock an episode a yellow light or two because, to me, your mileage may vary, Father Malone, but I think I've brought this up on the show in the past. My favorite episodes of Taxi are the ones where the ensemble is together in one way or another, and they're bouncing off of each other, and the episode is dealing with them as a whole, and everybody has a contribution to the episode. This isn't that. This is another example, kind of similar to Blind Date in a way, where it's just Alex acting opposite a woman, and it's like a two-hander. In this case, it really, to your point, it works really, really well because you've got two of the best actors around. You've got two of the best writers around, and you've got all wrapped into one of the greatest shows around, and it's magic.
I think they're asking a lot of the audience when they focus solely on one character and potentially a character we haven't seen before, a guest character, drop in as we have here. It's a lot to ask of us to not embrace the rest of the cast for this new plot line. So it's got to be a good story and the characters better be great. And that's what is delivered here.
They return to her apartment. She offers him $100 as a tip, not a measly $26 or $27, $100.
About time.
Yeah. So Alex protests, and it seems like Alex is starting to feel a little bit like a kept man. He likes spending time with her, but the fact that there's an exchange of money is making him feel a little bit uneasy about the situation.
Like a call girl or a hooker, one or the other.
She says, what's important to me is what I can buy with my money. Nice food, nice clothes, nice people. See you tomorrow. And she gets out, and Alex is left pensively looking at that $100 bill as we go to commercial.
What am I selling for this $100? Must I lose my soul in the process? Can I let John Burns win?
Maybe she goes up to her apartment to a waiting John Burns saying, you're doing wonderfully, Dee.
Ruth Gordon has a long history with Satan.
Another strand in the web that John Burns is weaving around the cab company. We will see.
He's like Daryl Van Horn in The Witches of Eastwick. He's blown into town. He's going to ruin everything, and he's going to disappear just the same.
That's working.
All of that silliness aside, and the fact is, this scene is good. All the scenes between these two are good, but I shouldn't have been noticed this because of the firepower in the foreground. But I mentioned the poor man's process at the top of the show, and you did, because the stuff at the airport was fantastic. Here, it goes completely bananas. Okay, poor man's process is usually one or two grips behind the car, holding a set of headlights, which are probably just floodlights, stapled, it's nailed onto a 2x4. And they make the car kind of stop behind them or weave in and out. And they have other lights off camera that they're showing, like for passing cars, for the passengers to be flooded by the lights and stuff, right? So here, all of that is working, and it's in concert. And then they pull over, and the other cars go past them. And then if you look in the background, there's a traffic light on some distant street behind them that goes to yellow. And then there's cross traffic, left to right behind them. There's tiny lights moving left and right across the frame. I was like, my God, it's like they're in the city. I didn't think you could surpass the phenomenal work they were doing just pretending that there were cars behind this car that's just sitting in a studio somewhere. And then they went ahead and did it like, oh yeah. Oh, you wanted a runway? I can do a runway. Well, wait till the next scene. And here it is. And they delivered, man.
They put all that effort in so that you forget about it and focus only on the actors and their scenes and their lines they're delivering. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. It's like great editing. If you noticed it, then how great was it?
Exactly. That's exactly my point.
And to that, I didn't notice this stuff the first time I watched the episode. It was on the second or maybe third time. And then it bowled me over because it achieved what it's supposed to achieve, which is to just make you believe that it's real back there. And I love that there's somebody with miniature lights running side to side and this traffic light. I don't know. It tickles me.
Do the Emmys have an award for best effects or best practical effects? Because it's beautiful. They deserved it.
Well, there is a technical category, but I don't know if there is a category and if they had won, but they should have. I'm giving them one posthumously right now.
They should have been nominated at the very least. That's for sure. Now we get back to the garage, and the cabbies are all chatting about how they're all looking for old women to get a setup like Alex has with Dee. And they're busting his chops a little bit. They're giving him a hard time, especially Louis, who really ends up humiliating Alex.
Yeah, but in a very funny, everything he's saying is funny.
They have an interesting relationship, Alex and Louis. At this point, Alex just kind of sits back and takes it a little bit, but you kind of get the impression that he gives as good as he gets.
The focus of the scene for me is less the actions of De Palma and Rieger and more John Burns trying to stifle laughter to the point where he's turning red, like he seems to be holding back paroxysms of laughter. And I think that can only mean that his plan is working here, watching another human be humiliated in the midst of this workplace. Just another dark event occurring, and he's just smiling inside.
It brings him glee. Even if it's not something of his own design, just seeing somebody humiliated in the demon sowing discord at the garage. Louis is just joke after joke. He's on a roll with Alex, and he's just really slinging it. And at a certain point, he's laughing so hard that Louis starts to choke, like really choke. So Alex offers Louis a drink, and Louis scarfs it down and then immediately spits it all back up and exclaiming, "That's hot coffee." To which Alex just explodes in the same sort of forced, cackling laughter that Louis was directing at him, which is a little mean-spirited, if you ask me. Giving him hot coffee to save him from choking.
The whole scene just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. But clearly, when you look at it as a diabolical plan in action, the scene is great. Like, watching these people who are so kind of jovial and friendly at the beginning of the episode reduced to this, just catcalling and like physical torture. It's all come undone at the Sunshine Cab Company. Is it ironically named? Maybe.
The intent of the scene does kind of come into focus a little bit better when you consider Burns and his evil scheme, the general diabolical nature of the character. That's actually, I can't believe I'm just noticing it now, thanks to your explaining of this whole thing. Yeah. Thanks to your insight into the motivations, it all makes sense to me now. We cut back to the cab. We're inside the cab again. Alex is taking Dee. He's squiring her around the city again. And she offers him a gift, which he's none too comfortable accepting, as we can already see that he's discomfited with the whole situation anyway. She charms him, as she does, into accepting it. And it's a beautiful cashmere sport coat.
Looks beautiful.
It looks great.
Yeah, Rieger like rubs his face on it. You can tell like how soft it is. Like, just imagine.
Nice warm cashmere coat.
I want to just sink into an aquarium, a giant aquarium size, but filled with cashmere.
They arrive at their next destination. It's the wonderfully titled The Enchanted Island Ballroom. And Dee asks Alex to wait a couple of hours outside. And he becomes very apprehensive, as you would expect. Like, who wants to sit out? He's not a limo driver. He's making money off of bookings. It's ridiculous. But then she suggests, why don't you come inside with me then? And Alex says he'd feel out of place. He's not really dressed appropriately. It would just be weird. To which she says, well, hey, nothing is dressier than a cashmere sport coat. Then he says, well, no, I don't have a tie or anything. That'd be ridiculous. And she says, yes, he pulls out another box wrapped and says, Merry Christmas, and gives him a tie. So this was a scheme in Dee's mind to get him looking nice for his date with her at the Enchanted Island Ballroom. So we cut inside the ballroom to another wonderful set.
Yeah, it's like, so they constantly have the one set, which is the garage, and then they have some giant second other set where they turn into everything, and it always looks amazing, which is just what they do again here.
Oh, it's tremendous. There's chandeliers, there's a mirror ball, there's a bandstand with the full band performing, there's tables surrounding a big dance floor. It's the works. It's as good as the reunion set that we saw back in the high school reunion episode. It's, to your point that you made in that episode, it just feels like it goes on forever. And there's people, like, almost seems like there's people coming from room to room. It looks very, very well lived in and very well appointed, as you'd expect a place called the Enchanted Island Ballroom to look. So they go inside. Once again, Alex is immediately uncomfortable. He's wearing his sport coat, which is, funny enough, it's a little small, which they make reference to later, but I don't know if you noticed, it actually is legitimately too small for Rieger.
Oh, I noticed it right away. The cuffs are just like halfway up his forearm.
His arms look huge in this thing. Even though he's apprehensive, Dee puts him at ease by starting to gossip about the various folks that are there. It's kind of a reverse of when Dee visited him in the garage, because it seems like, based on their conversations, he knows everybody that's in this place, the way she describes them. Like, oh, there's this such and such, and they've had so many facelifts. And he said, oh, I feel like I know all these people. So it's kind of nice. Dee meets up with an elderly suitor.
She meets up with Harry Wellman, I believe his name is in the episode, played by Herb Vigran, who keen-eyed and television-obsessed children of the 1970s should remember from one of the absolute best episodes of the Brady Bunch. First season episode, when it was weird. It was just, they were all straight little 50s clones, like somehow in the late 1960s. That was 54, 40, and Fight. Remember, it's the one where they were collecting all of the stamps from the grocery stores.
Oh, you're right.
Right. And then they find out that the trading stamps are all going to expire and they need to be used. So they combine them all together, and it's a win or lose, winner take all thing. And they build a house of cards.
The cards, yeah.
Boys versus girls. One of the girls is wearing a bracelet for some damn reason with a dangly. What is she doing anyway? So they win, and then they get to the store, which has clearly been like raided and just bombed all day long with people trying to use their trading stamps. The guy, come on, lady, we're already closed. That guy, that's him.
Wow, how did I miss that? Because I looked him up because he looked very familiar. And aside from, I think he appeared on the original Superman with George Reeves. I didn't find a lot. I guess I just didn't look close enough at his IMDb, but that is good sleuthing there, Father Malone.
Well, his final role was in Amazon Women on the Moon.
Oh, who did he play in that?
He was in the Reckless Youth segment. He was just an agent in that. The final, I think it was the Joe Dante directed segment with Paul Bartel.
Okay. The one about the STDs?
Yeah, they get back. We don't have any cigarettes.
That's fantastic. Yeah, he's great in this too. I mean, he's not in it for much, but it's very cute when he and Dee meet up. While she's talking with this guy, Alex goes to get punch. And who's standing there but this sort of gigolo-looking younger guy named Ramon, who his shirt is legit opened like past his navel. He looks like Tony Manero come to life in Taxi, basically.
He's a disco freak, man. White suit, black shirt, open. He's got the gold chain with the gold horn on it. Yeah.
And it had to be a big horn, because I could make it out even in the standard def quality that I'm viewing it on. It's a big like horn on that chain. He and Alex get to chatting a little bit, and it becomes clear that this guy is essentially a boy toy for one of the other women at this soiree. Ramon is lamenting all of the work that goes into being essentially a kept man. Ramon kind of implies that Alex is, quote, on the circuit, which makes Alex very defensive, because, again, through this whole episode, he's been fighting the notion that he's been bought and paid for by Dee to do her bidding and be her puppet on a string, if you will.
It's all of his fears manifested right here. The gigolo in front of him with the tacky suit and the slavish devotion to money and the hating his life. Like, here he is. Here's what I'm going to be. It's the last temptation of Alex Rieger.
Yeah. Initially, when he's talking to this guy, he's just humoring him and he's having fun. He's not taking any of this seriously until, as you said, he starts to recognize that, well, here is his nightmare manifest right here. This is the guy. This is what he didn't want to face up to the fact he's becoming, this guy, Ramon. Dee walks over to Alex and she asks for one dance. And, Alex puts away this apprehension and decides to have a dance with her. And it's a very charming little bit of physical comedy. They have a sweet little dance. The two of them return to Dee's apartment, and Alex walks her to her door. We learn that Alex won the Rumba contest at the ballroom.
That cashmere coat sure does come in handy. You can fit an entire trophy in one of those pockets.
But Dee contends that she won it and she was carrying Alex.
I'm guessing that's true.
Probably. I think somebody with the zest for life that she has is probably a really good dancer.
Well, plus they're at an old folks home. They're not giving it to Rieger.
Yeah, but they wouldn't give it to Ramon and his date? You don't think?
They would give it to them, but they're not giving it to him.
Good point. At this point, Alex, he just can't go on. And he says that they have to call this arrangement off. This has been preying on his mind. He just wants to get it out in the open. They can still see each other occasionally, but he just doesn't want any more business with the money. It just makes him too uncomfortable. Unexpectedly callous, however, Dee says, well, that's goodbye, I guess. Alex is incredulous, as any of us would be. And she replies, well, it just wouldn't be the same without the money, which, again, is harsh. But then she explains a little bit her reasoning.
Yeah, I was hoping it was going to be a kink of hers. Like, I need to pay my friends. It's just, listen, I'm old enough in my life to know what I like. And really, it gets me off to know that as much fun as you had today, I made it happen. Okay? Are we good? Then that would be one thing. But it's not that. It's I control people through money.
That's kind of weird. But yeah, she gives Alex her calculus around why money is better than friendship. That's the central thesis in her presentation here. She says that people spend their whole lives raising children that never come to see them. If she had kids, she says, she'd put them on her payroll so you can bet that they'd come to see her. And in that moment, I almost can feel some desperation behind her wall of money and charm and zeal and all of it. She's genuinely afraid to be alone. She has the money now. She's rich. So she has the facility and the resources to have anyone at her beck and call because that's what she needs. She's a lonely person and she's afraid that will all go away if she doesn't have the money. I don't know. That was my impression. What did you think, Father Malone?
I think that's a decent interpretation of it. But at the same time, you think to people who have too much money and their complaint is always, I don't know if this person has affection for me or is just trying to get what I have. And she's saying, I don't give a shit if I have their affection. I just want them there and I'll pay them to do it. And that's such a weird thing to take away from your newfound wealth.
But I think that's also much more human and relatable. And I'm not suggesting, look, I'm not rich and I'm not in a position where I can treat people the way that Dee does, but I could see somebody who's reached a point in their life where they don't want to deal with bullshit. They just want people there when she wants them there. And she knows that her money is the easiest avenue to that. It doesn't matter how charming or witty or funny or all of that. She knows that, hey, if I flash some money at you, keep you on the payroll, then you'll be there when I want you to be there. You know, no questions asked. I think that's very human.
True, and it's ultimately proven right because this is her only appearance. She stopped seeing Rieger, and we never see her again. So this is a life lesson for Alex Rieger here.
Anyway, she still tries to give him cash, and Rieger angrily refuses, and he complains that he feels used, that they were friends, but now she sees him as a piece of merchandise. And he finally says to her, look, I don't like you anymore. Kind of a heavy moment in the episode.
Remember when that sentiment was powerful? Like now, even the word love has been so overused and commercialized. It's basically meaningless. People say it about their breakfast cereal. I love this. Oh, really? You're in love with that? You feel a genuine need. You couldn't live without it. You would rather die. You would put your life down to preserve your cereal. But there did seem to be a time where just the very notion of liking another person could be devastating if that were taken away from you. And it's certainly on display here.
And for a moment there, there's something that kind of plays across Dee's face where she almost appears hurt by his words that he doesn't like her anymore, because it's clear that Dee lives for people to like her and have fun in her presence. So for a moment there, you think that it's all going to crash down for her. But she replies, as only Ruth Gordon can, oh, horse manure, you love me. All he can do is laugh because she's got him. Yes, she has a messed up relationship with money and friendship, But I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, that she's an old woman. She doesn't have very long to live. He's not going to change her. So all he can do is kind of laugh and say, yeah, you're right. I still love you. What am I going to do?
She's proven right once again.
But she asks if they can still have lunch together. And Alex insists, yes, but only if I pay. She has this look on her face like, oh, all right. And then as she's unlocking her door, she kind of mutters, I just hope my stomach can take those dumps that you can afford. In her eyes, Alex is a poor person.
Also, at one point, she says, Alex, for a younger guy, you could be a real drip. And that seems affectionate as well. But it doesn't say, yeah, she's right. Alex can be a bit of a downer sometimes.
Yeah, but I think drip that's not a harsh insult even under the worst of circumstances. That you're just telling someone that they're kind of stuffy.
I think someone from Ruth Gordon's generation would disagree with you. I bet calling somebody a drip would be akin to calling someone an asshole. You know what? You're a real drip.
HP, you're a real drip.
Now go get me a phosphate.
Okay, so then exit D, and the episode is effectively over. We're going to get to the portion of the episode where we talk about yellow lights.
What does a yellow light mean?
To remind the audience, we score on a scale of 1 to 5 yellow lights, no half lights. It has to be on the whole. 1 yellow light this is an example of the worst Taxi has to offer. 5 yellow lights, this is the quintessential best episode that Taxi can offer. As we do every week, I'm going to give it to you, Father Malone. What do you give this episode, Sugar Mama? How many yellow lights?
It can't be 5. It's not quintessential. It doesn't have enough of the rest of the cast. I do think this is a quintessential guest spot episode of Taxi. I think the writing is there. I think the performances are there. I think the direction clearly is there. It can't be 5. It's not perfect. It is a 4, however. This is as close as you can get. If we had maybe a B plot going on, there's no room for the B plot. See, that's the thing. But had they included a decent B plot, it would easily be a 5.
I struggled with this because my initial gut reaction was this. Of course, this is a 5 yellow light episode because you have Ruth Gordon in this incredible role of D. She makes everything better just being a part of it, and it's wonderfully written. There's some great moments between her and Alex and so forth. We've talked about all of that. But so the episode itself is absolutely charming, and Gordon is incredible in it. But I can't mark it as quintessential because for me, one of the big criteria, which I've brought up in the past, is it can only be truly quintessential if it involves the larger ensemble being involved in some way, shape, or form. That, to me, is a big part of what makes it an essential Taxi episode. So I can't give it 5 yellow lights, just like you, Father Malone, but I am going to give it 4 yellow lights. It's as close as you can get to 5 yellow lights. Just didn't quite get there. There were a few elements missing from the episode, but that's okay. This is an episode that I would wholeheartedly encourage anyone and everyone to seek out. It's beautiful. It's a wonderful episode. You can't go wrong with it. But if aliens came down and asked me what the platonic ideal of a Taxi episode is, this would not be the one I would give them. We have yet to find that episode, but I promise you we will find it sooner than we think.
It's going to be the one where John Burns finally reveals himself and destroys Sunshine Cab and disappears. I think it's the finale.
It could very well be. It'll be kind of like Who Shot JR? Like, what's going to happen in the next season? Will the cab company be burnt to the ground? Is Burns the keymaster to Nardo's gatekeeper of Gozer? Is there something going on here? Maybe that feeds into Ghostbusters. Who knows?
Wow. Now that image is in my head. I think Marilu Henner could have given Sigourney Weaver a run for that role.
Could be. Could be. That'll do it for this particular episode of Night Mr. Walters. Father Malone, when you're not clocked into the garage, where can our listeners find you?
Head over to fathermalone.com, or for podcasts galore, go to weirdingwaymedia.com. You'll not only find the stuff I do, you'll find a lot of stuff others do, like the Projection Booth by Mike White, or the Culture Cast, which is Chris Stasher, or Twisted It and Uncorked, which is a true crime one. Those are all really good. As for me, check out my show, Midnight Viewing, the Night Gallery podcast, about Rod Serling's follow-up to the Twilight Zone, Night Gallery.
I am also found in many of the same places as Father Malone, as far as being part of the Weirding Way network. As he said, you can find me on the Noise Junkies music podcast, which I'm very proud of. I would also encourage you to seek out the Dark Destinations podcast. It's my favorite, not just because I've been involved in some music and some other things. I think it's a genuinely exciting listen and well worth your time. You can also find me. I have a Bandcamp site, which you can find the address for in the description of this episode. Check that out for a couple of albums worth of musical nonsense from yours truly. Thank you again so much for listening. If I could just ask, if you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to like us, subscribe to the podcast, or write a review, or just send us any messages you'd like. We'd love to hear from you guys, what you like about the show and what you'd like to see in future episodes. That'd be fantastic. So please feel free to contact us in the manner that you choose. From myself, HP, and from Father Malone, thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next time on Night, Mr. Walters. Good night.
Night, Mr. Walters.